Look at that man walking alone down the street. No wedding ring, no kids waiting at home, no family obligations weighing on his shoulders. Society tells you he's missing something, that he's incomplete, that his life lacks purpose. But what if I told you he's discovered something most men will never understand? What if that solitary figure isn't running from happiness but walking straight toward a freedom so profound it terrifies the average person? Today, we're diving into Arthur Schopenhauer's most controversial philosophy, the one that reveals why the man with no family might actually be living like a king while everyone else is trapped in a golden cage they built themselves. Before we begin this journey into one of philosophy's most unsettling truths, I want you to do something for me. Look around at your life right now. Think about the choices you've made, the responsibilities you've taken on, the paths you've committed to. Now ask yourself honestly, did you choose these things because you truly wanted them, or because society convinced you that you should want them? That question is about to become very important. Speaking of where you are right now in this moment, drop a comment below and tell me what city you're watching this from. I'm curious to see how far this message reaches. How many men across the world are ready to hear what Schopenhauer understood over 150 years ago? Schopenhauer walked the streets of Frankfurt in the 1800s, an old man with a poodle, eating alone in the same restaurant every day, never married, no children, no family drama consuming his energy. People pitied him. They whispered about the lonely philosopher who couldn't find love. But here's what they didn't understand, what most people still don't understand today. Schopenhauer wasn't alone because he failed at relationships. He was alone because he succeeded at something far more difficult. He succeeded at seeing through the greatest illusion that enslaves humanity, what he called the will to life, that blind, unconscious force that drives you to reproduce, to build families, to create the next generation, all while convincing you it's what you truly want. The will to life is nature's trick, the ultimate con job. It makes you believe that romantic love is this transcendent spiritual connection, when really it's just biology manipulating your brain chemistry to ensure the survival of the species. Schopenhauer looked at a man falling in love and saw a puppet dancing on strings he couldn't even see. He looked at the overwhelming desire to have children and recognized it as nature hijacking your consciousness for its own agenda. And here's the truly disturbing part, the part that makes people uncomfortable when they first hear it. That feeling of profound meaning you get when you hold your child, that sense of purpose that comes from family life, Schopenhauer would tell you that's not authentic meaning. That's the will to life rewarding you with dopamine and oxytocin for serving its purposes. Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds cynical, pessimistic, maybe even cruel. How can you reduce the beauty of family life to mere biological programming? But stay with me, because Schopenhauer isn't trying to make you miserable. He's trying to wake you up. He's offering you a red pill that most men will never have the courage to swallow. And once you understand what he's really saying, you'll see the man with no family in a completely different light. You'll understand why freedom from the will to life is the ultimate form of human liberation. Think about the typical trajectory of a man's life in society. He reaches his 20s. The pressure starts mounting. Find a girlfriend. Get serious. Think about marriage. His 30s arrive. Now it's time for kids, time to buy the house in the suburbs, time to sacrifice his ambitions for family stability. By his 40s, he's locked in. 2 kids, a mortgage, a wife who's become a co-parent rather than a lover, and a life that revolves entirely around obligations he took on when his brain was flooded with hormones and social pressure. He wakes up one day and realizes he hasn't thought about his own dreams in years. He doesn't even remember what those dreams were. And society calls this success. Society calls this fulfillment. Society looks at this exhausted, depleted man who gave up everything for family and says, "Now that's a life well lived." Schopenhauer looked at this same scenario and saw a man who was used by nature to propagate the species, used by society to maintain the status quo, used by the economic system that needs workers and consumers and taxpayers. The family man isn't a king. He's a servant. He serves his children's needs, his wife's expectations, his employer's demands, society's standards. Every decision he makes, every dollar he earns, every moment of his time, it all flows away from him toward others. And the tragedy is that he believes this is noble. He believes this is what it means to be a man. But the man with no family, the man walking alone, he's kept something precious that most men surrender without even realizing they had it. He's kept himself. His time is his own. His money is his own. His energy is his own. When he wakes up in the morning, the day belongs to him, not to the endless needs of dependence. He can pursue knowledge, art, philosophy, travel, whatever brings his individual consciousness fulfillment, without having to filter every choice through the lens of family obligation. Schopenhauer believed this was the closest thing to freedom a human being could experience, this escape from the will to life's agenda. Here's where it gets really interesting. Schopenhauer argued that the suffering in life is directly proportional to desire. The more you want, the more you suffer because you're either striving to get what you don't have or anxious about losing what you do have. Family life multiplies your desires exponentially. Now, you're not just worried about your own survival and happiness. You're worried about your spouse's happiness, your children's safety, their education, their future, their problems becoming your problems, their pain becoming your pain. You've essentially taken on multiple channels of suffering, multiple sources of anxiety, multiple ways for life to hurt you. The family man has made himself vulnerable in ways the solitary man never will be. And society knows this. Society knows that the family man is easier to control because he has more to lose. He can't take risks. He can't speak uncomfortable truths. He can't walk away from soul-crushing employment because people depend on him. He's been domesticated, neutered of his dangerous masculine potential, by the very responsibilities he thought would make him a man. The employer knows it. That's why they prefer married men with kids, men who can't afford to quit. The government knows it. That's why they incentivize marriage and children through tax policy, creating citizens who are invested in stability over change. The whole system benefits from men choosing family, which is exactly why Schopenhauer was so suspicious of the social pressure to follow that path. Now let me be clear about something, because this is where people misunderstand Schopenhauer's philosophy. He's not saying that every man who chooses family is a fool. He's not saying there's no joy or value in relationships and children. What he's saying is that you need to see these choices clearly, without the rose-colored glasses that biology and society hand you. You need to understand that when you feel that overwhelming urge to settle down and reproduce, you're not experiencing your authentic desires. You're experiencing nature's agenda expressing itself through you. And once you see that clearly, you can make a conscious choice rather than sleepwalking into a life that serves everyone except yourself. The man with no family has made that conscious choice. He's looked at the biological programming, the social expectations, the promise of meaning through legacy, and he said no. Not because he's afraid of intimacy or commitment, but because he values something more than what those things offer. He values his autonomy, his independence, his ability to live life on his own terms without being conscripted into nature's endless cycle of birth, suffering, and death. Schopenhauer called this the path of the ascetic, the person who denies the will to life, and in doing so achieves a kind of peace that the striving, desiring, reproducing masses never know. Picture it this way. Most men are like soldiers drafted into a war they didn't choose, fighting for objectives they don't truly understand, following orders from generals they've never met. They march because everyone else is marching. They fight because everyone says this is what warriors do. They never stop to ask why they're at war in the first place, or whether this war serves their interests at all. The man with no family is the one who looked at the draft notice, understood exactly what it was asking of him, and tore it up. He went AWOL from nature's army. And while society might call him a deserter, he's the only one who's actually free. This freedom comes with a price though, and Schopenhauer was honest about that. Society doesn't reward the man who opts out. It punishes him with judgment, with pity, with the constant insinuation that something is wrong with him. People will assume he's selfish, immature, commitment-phobic, or damaged. They'll wait for him to grow up and see the error of his ways. What they can't comprehend is that he's already seen more clearly than they ever will. He's looked behind the curtain at the machinery of human existence and chosen not to participate in the charade. That takes more courage than walking down an aisle or cutting an umbilical cord ever could. Schopenhauer himself experienced this judgment constantly. His own mother, a successful novelist, had a strained relationship with him precisely because he refused to live conventionally. She wanted him to pursue a respectable career, to marry well, to give her grandchildren. Instead, he spent his life writing philosophy that most people found too dark, too honest, too willing to say what everyone secretly knows but refuses to acknowledge. He died alone in his apartment, his poodle beside him, his revolutionary work largely unappreciated during his lifetime. And yet he lived exactly as he chose to live, every single day. Can the average family man say the same? Can the father working a job he hates to pay for a house he never wanted say that his life belongs to him? Let's talk about what the man with no family actually gains, the specific advantages that make his life resemble a king's existence, rather than the lonely tragedy society portrays. First, there's time, that most precious, non-renewable resource. The childless man wakes up on Saturday morning, and the day stretches before him like an empty canvas. He can read philosophy for 6 hours straight. He can take a spontaneous road trip. He can sit in a cafe watching strangers and thinking deep thoughts without someone needing him to fix something, drive somewhere, or attend some obligation. Time is the ultimate luxury, and he's wealthy beyond measure in a currency that the family man spends faster than he can earn it. Then there's money, the practical dimension of freedom that nobody wants to discuss, but everyone should. The cost of raising a single child to adulthood in America is estimated at over $250,000, and that's just the basics, not counting college, weddings, or the financial support that extends well into their 20s now. Multiply that by 2 or 3 kids, add in the larger house, the bigger car, the family vacations, and you're looking at well over $1 million redirected away from your own life and into the lives of people who didn't exist until you made them exist. The man with no family keeps that money. He invests it, travels with it, pursues his passions with it, or simply enjoys the peace of mind that comes from financial security. He's not trapped in a job because his income is discretionary, not mandatory. That's kingly freedom right there. But the deepest freedom is psychological. The liberation from the constant low-grade anxiety that hums beneath every family man's consciousness. The family man never truly relaxes because there's always something to worry about. Is my child being bullied at school? Is my marriage losing its spark? Am I saving enough for college? What if I lose my job? What if something happens to one of them? His happiness is hostage to the well-being of others. And in this uncertain world, that means his happiness is always conditional, always fragile, always under threat. The man with no family worries only about himself. And that's not selfishness, that's sanity. It's recognizing that you can't control the universe and refusing to multiply your vulnerability to its chaos by creating dependence. Schopenhauer understood that suffering is inherent to existence. You can't eliminate it, but you can avoid amplifying it unnecessarily. Having a family is choosing to amplify it, choosing to create new channels through which life can hurt you. It's volunteering for additional suffering that you then have to pretend is meaningful and worthwhile. The man with no family has simply declined that volunteer opportunity. He's still subject to the suffering that comes with being human, illness, aging, loss, death, but he's not taking on optional suffering disguised as duty. That's wisdom, not weakness. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the question everyone asks. What about meaning? What about legacy? Doesn't the man with no family miss out on the deeper purpose that comes from raising the next generation? Schopenhauer would laugh at this question, not cruelly, but with the amusement of someone who's seen through yet another illusion. Legacy is ego, nothing more. It's your fear of death trying to comfort itself with the fantasy that you'll live on through your children. But you won't. Your children are not you. They're separate beings who will live their own lives, make their own choices, and likely forget most of what you tried to teach them within a generation or two of your death. And their children, your grandchildren, will barely know you existed. This isn't cynicism, it's reality. The pharaohs built pyramids to ensure their legacy, and now tourists climb on their tombs taking selfies. If immortality through legacy didn't work for god-kings with unlimited resources, it's certainly not working for your suburban family. As for meaning, Here's what Schopenhauer knew that most people refuse to accept. Meaning is something you project onto life, not something inherent in particular choices. The family man finds meaning in his children because he's committed to that narrative. If he didn't find meaning there, his entire life structure would collapse. So his mind generates meaning to protect itself from existential crisis. But meaning can come from anywhere. It can come from mastering a craft, from creating art, from pursuing knowledge, from experiencing the world, from deep friendships, from spiritual practice, from helping strangers who will never know your name. The man with no family is free to find meaning in 1,000 places the family man never has time to explore. Who's really living a more meaningful existence? The person who finds profound value in one narrow slice of human experience, or the person who samples the full buffet of what consciousness has to offer. Think about the great philosophers, artists, and thinkers throughout history. Many of them were childless. Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Kant, Kierkegaard, Thoreau, Tesla, Newton, Beethoven, Leonardo da Vinci. These men contributed more to human civilization through their individual pursuits than most family men contribute through their bloodlines. Their legacy, if we must use that word, exists in ideas and creations that continue to impact millions of lives centuries after their deaths. Meanwhile, the average family man's legacy is a few descendants who carry a fraction of his DNA and maybe remember some stories about him for a generation or two. Which legacy actually matters? Which life was actually well lived? The man with no family also maintains something precious that married life slowly erodes: a connection to his essential self. Marriage and family require constant compromise, negotiation, and self-modification. You can't be fully yourself because yourself might not be compatible with domestic harmony. You sand down your edges, suppress your inconvenient opinions, abandon your eccentric interests, all in service of maintaining peace in the household. Over decades, this creates a strange phenomenon. The family man looks in the mirror one day and doesn't recognize who's looking back. He's become a function, a role, a provider and protector and partner, but not an authentic individual. The man with no family never has to make those compromises. He gets to remain himself, weird quirks and all, evolving according to his own internal logic rather than external pressures. That's a form of integrity that family life makes nearly impossible to maintain. Schopenhauer also recognized that relationships, especially romantic relationships, are fundamentally based on illusion. You fall in love because your biology has decided this person's genetics would combine well with yours to produce healthy offspring. Your conscious mind experiences this as profound compatibility, as soulmate connection, as destiny. But it's just chemistry. Literally. Hormones are making you temporarily insane, and during that temporary insanity, you make permanent commitments. Then the hormones fade, usually after a few years, definitely after children arrive, and you're left looking at another flawed human being wondering what you were thinking. The divorce statistics tell the story that nobody wants to admit. More than half of marriages fail, and that's just counting the ones that officially end. How many more are functioning failures? Couples staying together out of inertia, financial entanglement, or concern for kids. The man with no family has opted out of this lottery, where the odds are terrible, and the cost of losing is catastrophic. Here's what really bothers people about the man with no family. He's proof that their choices weren't inevitable. He's evidence that there's another way to live, and his existence questions the narrative they've built their entire lives around. If he can be happy, fulfilled, and free without the things they sacrificed everything for, what does that say about their sacrifices? Most people can't handle that question, so instead, they project their own fears onto him. They insist he must be lonely, he must be missing out, he must come to regret his choices eventually. But what if he doesn't? What if he reaches old age with no regrets, having lived exactly the life he wanted? That possibility is too threatening to the collective agreement that family is what gives life meaning, so it must be denied, mocked, or pitied into submission. Schopenhauer would tell you that the man with no family has achieved something most people never even attempt. He's lived consciously, rather than automatically. He's questioned the program rather than running it blindly. He's prioritized his own authentic experience over society's template for a successful life. And in doing so, He's accessed a quality of freedom that the masses can't even imagine because they've never tasted it. They're like prisoners who've been locked up so long they can't conceive of what life outside the walls might be like. The man with no family has walked through the gates and discovered that the world is vastly larger than the compound where everyone else lives. This doesn't mean life without family is easy or without its challenges. Solitude can be difficult. Aging without children to care for you is a real concern. Going against social norms requires thick skin and strong convictions. But these challenges are different from the challenges of family life. They're challenges you choose with eyes open, rather than challenges that choose you because you followed the script. And there's a dignity in facing difficulties you selected for yourself that's absent when you're merely enduring the consequences of choices you made while under biological and social influence. Let me paint you a picture of two men at age 70. The first is the family man. His children are scattered across the country, busy with their own lives, calling occasionally out of obligation. His wife, if she's still alive and they're still together, has become a stranger he lives with, someone he's run out of things to say to decades ago. He looks back on his life and sees a series of responsibilities he fulfilled, duties he performed. But when he tries to remember moments that were truly his own, moments when he was fully alive and fully himself, the memories are few and far between. His life was spent in service of others, and now, in his final years, he wonders what his life would have been like if he'd actually lived it. The second man is the one with no family. He sits in his apartment surrounded by books he's read, instruments he's learned to play, photos from countries he explored, artwork he created. His days are still his own. He's maintained friendships based on genuine connection rather than family obligation. He looks back on a life lived intentionally, choices made consciously, experiences pursued because he wanted them rather than because they were expected. Which man do you think sleeps better at night? Which man has fewer regrets? The truth that Schopenhauer understood, the truth that makes his philosophy so uncomfortable, is that most people live for others while telling themselves they're living for themselves. They make choices based on what parents want, what society expects, what friends are doing, what seems respectable, what feels safe. And then they construct elaborate rationalizations for why these externally imposed choices were actually their authentic desires all along. The man with no family has broken that pattern. He's looked at what everyone else is doing and asked the most dangerous question in the world. Why? Why should I marry? Why should I have children? Why should I structure my life around these particular goals? And when he couldn't find answers that satisfied him beyond because everyone does, or because you'll regret it if you don't, he chose differently. This is why he lives like a king. Not because his life is perfect or challenge-free or immune to suffering, but because it's his life, genuinely and completely his in a way that most people's lives never are. Every hour of his day belongs to him. Every dollar he earns is his to spend. Every decision he makes considers only his own well-being and authentic desires. He's not performing for an audience, not living up to someone else's expectations, not sacrificing his present for someone else's future. He's just living, purely and simply, living as a free individual in a world that offers very few examples of what that actually looks like. And in a society that measures success by how well you serve others, the man who serves only himself, while harming no one, is indeed living like a king in a nation of servants. Now that you've heard Schopenhauer's secret, that uncomfortable truth about the man with no family actually being the freest man in the room, I want you to do something. Think about your own life and drop a comment right now telling me, I choose my own path, if this message resonated with you. I want to see how many men watching this are ready to acknowledge what they already know deep down. Don't just scroll past this. Actually type those words in the comments, because saying it out loud, even digitally, is the first step toward living it. And when you do that, hit subscribe to this channel because we're building a community of men who refuse to sleepwalk through life, following scripts written by others. That little subscribe button is your signal that you're ready for more truth, more philosophy, that challenges everything you've been told, more content that treats you like an intelligent adult capable of handling uncomfortable ideas. Click it now. The next video we're releasing is going to take everything you just learned and push it even further into territory most people are afraid to explore. We're going deeper into the philosophy of freedom, examining another truth that society desperately wants to keep hidden from you. You won't want to miss what's coming next, because once you start seeing the world this clearly, there's no going back to comfortable illusions, and I promise you, the journey ahead is going to change how you see everything.